have my muslin prepped, and I have my measurements at the ready, and I have this diagram at the ready. So now I am going to start prepping my muslin by making marks on it that will be guide marks while I am draping. So just like the diagram, I have my back piece on the left, and I have what's going to be my front piece on the right, just like it shows on the diagram. And the first thing I'm going to do is mark the center. So I'll start with the back. So I'm going to move the front out of the way for a minute. And I'm going to mark the center back here. Now, the way this used to work back in the day is we would measure about an inch in from the edge of the fabric, and then we would take a pin and we would try and just pick up one single little thread of the fabric, and then we would pull that thread, and it would like just pull that thread out all the way. And then after we pulled the thread out, there'd be like a faint line from having pulled that yarn out of the fabric. And then with red silk thread, and we'd feed that red silk thread where that other thread had been that we pulled out. And that's how we would mark our grain line. That is really time consuming, and so we're not going to do that. Normally, you're going to prepare your muslin as much as you can outside of class. Now, if you have just a ton of time on your hands, you are welcome to go ahead and pull threads. But I'm going to show you how to do it a much more efficient way, given the constraints on time that we have in this class. So I'm just going to use a ruler, and I'm going to measure in 1 center back. And I'm not measuring this like rough fuzzy stuff on the end. I'm measuring from like a solid edge. So we never drape on a edge, like a cut or torn edge. Well, we wouldn't cut our fabric. So we wouldn't drape on a torn edge. We always start off with a fold. So first we draw our center line for center back. So 1 inch from the edge. Let me pause you and bring you a little closer. So I have my line drawn 1 inch from the center back, just like the diagram shows. And then I'm going to measure down 1.25 inches from the top waist to give me space for draping. So I'm going to go up here to the top corner. I'm going to measure down 1.25 inches, and I'm going to make a mark. That's going to be where I start draping my center back waist. Then I'm going to measure down my hip depth. So let me switch over measurements. So my hip depth for my back is 7 3/4. So from that mark that I made for where I'm going to start draping, I'm going to measure down another 7 3/4 and make a mark. And then I'm going to also measure down over here the 1.25 inches plus 7 3/4. So that is, I'm pretty sure that's 9 inches. So measure it down that same 9 inches on the other side, just to give me a ballpark for squareness. And then I'm going to grab my L square. And put my L square up against my center. Ah, fabric. All right. That's going to be my line. And then I'm going to measure from along the HBL line. I'm going to measure out my hip arc, my back hip arc, which is, so hip arc, back hip arc was 9 5/8. So 9 5/8. And then I'm going to make a mark on my hip arc for that 9 5/8 measurement. And then I'm going to measure out an additional 1/2 inch for ease, and I'm going to make a mark. So that total distance for my back hip arc plus ease is 10 5/8. So I'll measure down here 10 5/8 out from the center and make a mark. And then I'll connect those two. And now I have pretty much the bottom of my skirt ready to go. So the next thing I'm going to do is press on that center line. So let me pause you and get you in a better vantage point so you can see a little more of this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to press on that line that I drew for the center back. So I usually flip it over and then fold on that pencil line. And then I to press a crease right on that line that I drew. And then I'm going to repeat this on the front, but with the measurements for the front. So now that's nice and pressed and ready to go. So now let's repeat that with the front. So here's my front. I'm going to draw a line down the center front, 1 inch from the torn edge. Can't see it very well, so I'm going to flip it over so I can see it better. So there's my center front line. Now I'm going to measure down 1.25 inches and make a mark for my center front waist where I'm going to start draping. And then I'm going to measure down my front hip depth, which I'm pretty sure was 7 3/4. Go check my measurement. Front hip depth 7 3/4. Okay. So 7 3/4. Make a mark for my front hip depth. So right there, 7 3/4 from that 1.25 inches down. So 9 inches total down. Then I'm going to square across. So that's 9 inches down there, and then move it this way so you can see. So 9 inches down this way because of my hip depth. It is 9. Yours will probably be different. And then I will square my HBL across. Then I will mark on that line my hip arc measurement. So my front hip arc is is 8 7/8. So I'll go out 8 7/8 and make a mark on my HBL for my hip arc measurement. Then I'll measure out an additional 1/2 inch. So now I am 9 3/8 inches away from my center line. So that's my 1/2 inch ease. And then I'll come down here and measure out 9 3/8. Make a mark. And then I'll connect those dots to make my side seam. So make sure that you write your name on your pieces. And this one's my front. And if you have a dress form number, that's also helpful. And then over here, I have okay. Now let me just finger press my center front, and then I am ready to start draping. Make sure I have a nice sharp crease there. All right, there we go.